Tom Thomas. And how about we start out by you telling us what years you were here?
I started in February of 1980, and I officially retired from the full-time position this past summer in July of 2007, and I'm still working part-time. So I'm not yet fully gone, but
Okay.
close.
And what did you start out doing?
For all of those years, my main job was with audiovisual services. So back in the earlier days anyway, we sort of handled all the audiovisual needs. We would have been the ones taping this today and delivering equipment and things of that sort, you know, taking pictures, videotaping. We used to do lamination and tape duplication and anything that was related to an audiovisual need to support whatever was going on at the college.
So did you do every department, or was there a specific department that you worked with the most, or was it just kind of wherever you were needed?
Well, it was all over the place, which was kind of a nice feature because, you know, most departments at one time or another need some kind of audiovisual support for their activities or their teaching. So we were sort of all over the campus. You know, years ago we used to just have TVs and VCRs and overhead projectors set up in rooms, so we would kind of take care of those. And if there was need for a slide projector, or years ago, back in the days of 16mm projectors, you used to push those around. And sometimes I'd go down to the athletic field if, you know, they needed, they would videotape their pitchers, you know, watch their techniques or whatever. So that was a nice part, you know, is that we got to go all over the campus and pretty much got to know everybody and serve, I think, just about every department. I mean, not too much down in the business area, but,
Right.
you know, as far as classes and all, pretty much all over the place.
So did it change as the technology increased? Did it become more focused, your job, or stay kind of open?
Yeah, there's with the technology change, you know, for a lot of years, the first 17 years or so, there wasn't a whole lot of big change in technology, but as the computers became more predominant in, you know, everything seems to be computer-based now, so a lot of changes started happening when everything became computer-based. So, and then particularly, I don't know how long you've been around here, but the last 5 or 6 years when they renovated the entire college, you know, they basically redid most of the rooms and integrated multimedia systems, you know, where you've got the whole works in each room for whatever needs you have, which has sort of led to my departure because a lot of the things I used to do sort of faded away. But
Oh, that's sad.
yeah.
So did you have a big hand in putting all the new equipment in?
I sort of was on the perimeters of that. They've got a great staff right here as we speak in presentation technology services, I think is the term for it now, and with Tom Aldridge and Russ Ivy and some of the others over there. And those guys were really the ones that did all the sweat and figuring out and installing of all that stuff, and they've done an excellent job. And I was still on the outskirts when they were doing that, trying to finish up the remnants of how it used to be done. And after they finished remodeling the college and things have kind of settled down since, that's when, you know, the kind of thing I used to do doesn't really exist anymore. So I thought maybe it's time to move on.
So did you do a lot with the performance hall, or like with all the different plays and concerts and stuff?
No, interestingly enough, that's what I'm doing now. Is when I retired from the full-time position that I had, I became part of the performance hall staff, and so that's kind of what I'm doing now. The performance hall has their own staff to kind of take care of that because the needs over there are pretty specific and require, you know, their own full-time staff. So, I mean, we would occasionally deliver equipment over there, and years ago Yeah, I guess to back up, I did, now that memory's coming back, the AV department used to be is where I worked. Audiovisual services is pretty much what I did all those years. And we used to videotape a lot of concerts and things like that. And oddly enough, that's what I'm still doing. I did that a couple of days ago, and then this Friday I'll be videotaping the NARDA graduation. So that used to be done by the AV department, would kind of come in special to videotape, and things have changed around a lot. So I'm part of their staff, so when they have a videotape need, I've been kind of helping out with that. So.
Okay. So how did you end up at Yavapai College? Like, what drew you here to the town even?
I was born and raised in Southern California, but my family made a trip out here in 1965, and it always really stuck in my head as being a really nice place to live. And so through a lot of series of events, I'd met some people in California that lived out here, and so I always wanted to live here. So I managed to get on for a couple of years with an electrician, and I was just sort of assisting him. I don't know much about doing that kind of work, but and then I moved on from that to working for the Prescott School District and the Food Service Center, and then I got the job here at Yavapai College. But what drew me to the college, when I was in California, I worked for an audiovisual department at a school district for about a year and a half part-time, and enjoyed that. And my whole family, all of the background of all the people in my family that I grew up with, we've all worked for colleges and schools. And my dad worked for Cal Poly University in Pomona for 20 years. And so I've always had some background in involvements with education and working in education. And I think what drew me is when you get to a point where you're sort of looking for full-time employment, you want to try and do something that's maybe going to be interesting. And I had remembered as a kid going to pick my dad up from work that colleges to me were a little bit like Disneyland. Disneyland sort of got the main street and then the main hub, and then off the main hub you have all the different lands. And I always thought colleges were kind of a little bit like Disneyland, because you would have, sometimes we'd go to the swimming pool or the gym, or you've got a cafeteria, you've got a theater, you've got the athletic fields, you've got sometimes a nice quad, and like we have out here at Yavapai College after they've remodeled, a real nice grass area. It's sort of a park atmosphere. So you really, when you're working at a college, and then you've got all the different disciplines, of science and business and history and, just whatever you want. So it's a little bit like that. You've got a lot of different options, a lot of different interesting things that go on, and it's just, I think, a fun and interesting environment to be around. So I just started checking things out and seeing if there was an opening with AV type work here.
So what was it like when you first started, as far as atmosphere and the faculty?
When I first started, it was back in 80, and the college had been around for a few years, but back then, of course, the campus was much smaller. It wasn't near as spread out as it is today, not as large as it is today. So just physically, the campus was smaller, and as a result of that, of course, there's not as many employees. So I think you get to know everybody a little bit closer, maybe a little more of a family atmosphere when you have a smaller college and smaller numbers. So initially, I think that's one of the big differences between what we have now, because it's grown so much and expanded so much and has so many outlets, and we absorbed all the ADOT buildings that used to be ADOT buildings, and so it kind of spreads out, and it's larger.
So how did the outside factors affect the college, like the community and stuff? Did it have a big effect on the college back when?
I'm I'm not real. There's probably other people better qualified to give that kind of observation. For myself, I mean, in terms of the community, I think I took a community college course once, and the fact that the word community is linked with the college says a lot about the college. And so I think it's kind of a two-way street. I think that the college really offers a lot to the community, and I think in return, the community responds a lot by participating with the college. And so when my kids were young, the college had programs in the summer for kids to participate in. So yeah, and I had my kids participate in those, and they took swimming lessons here. And currently, my wife and one of my daughters utilize the weight room. They would work out in the weight room a couple of days a week. And working at the performance hall, there's a real link with the community when it comes to the performance hall and activities, and also with athletics, I'm sure, is the same kind of thing. It draws a lot of community in, and something the community participates in, and also the college provides for the community. And also I've been involved with Elder Hostel, and have some familiarity with some of the senior programs, and a lot of those have been, a lot of participation has come from the community. As I recall, I used to, on Fridays, the older citizens sort of set up their own college, and they would have classes. They would make up their own classes, things that were interesting to them. And I used to deliver equipment to them on Fridays. And, so it's a nice two-way street, and I think the concept of community college is a nice one. And again, it's something I think the institution provides, and yet the community also brings into the institution. So
Right. So what were the expectations of Yavapai towards the faculty when you were hired? Were you expected to interact with all the students and act a certain way, or?
I think the mentality of when you work for an institution like a college is that, and I think it's brought to light every once in a while if it drifts too far away, is that the real purpose for being here, for everybody who's employed here, is essentially for the students. That's the purpose of existing, is to serve the students and to provide the kind of resources and atmosphere that helps them accomplish their goals. And so I think as long as that kind of mindset is kind of followed and remembered, that expectation is fulfilled on the part of, I think, the people that hire you. The expectation is to help provide that, and that's the way I see expectations.
So you mentioned resources. How the resources for you as a faculty member changed over the years?
Yeah, I was actually technically a staff member, although I did teach a couple of 3 different semesters one class, but which I guess made me a part-time faculty. But the resources early on, having been involved with the audiovisual thing, I could see technology change quite a bit. Like I said, the first 17 years or so, I didn't see a whole lot of change. We had a lot of similar equipment and processes that took place, but the last 10 years or so that I was here, the technology just kept changing pretty quickly, and the use of computers is the main thing that I see as being a real change in sort of resources that are utilized. And so those popped up everywhere. It used to be computers were sort of a special item that were in a select few spots, and now I don't think you can hardly go in a room without somebody having some kind of a computer of some sort. So
did you find that a lot of the faculty had a hard time adjusting to that? Did you have to help them out, or?
Some do, and some folks, I think it just depends on the individual. I sympathize with the ones who had a hard time, because I had a hard time, and that's also part of the reason I elected to move on when I did is for those of us who aren't quite as computer-minded and a little more challenged when it comes to using some of the technology, it's a difficult adjustment, especially if you've been doing it a certain way. I think the challenge for a lot of people is when you've done something one way for a lot of years and you're comfortable with that, it can be a little upsetting, a little challenging to more or less be forced to utilize a different format. And if it's not familiar or comfortable, or your mindset isn't towards technology, it can be a little hard to make that leap.
Yeah. So, with filming and stuff, did you meet a lot of the different people that come to college, and like how I'm sure that increased your interaction with all the activities and special concerts, performances, or anything like that? Do you have like a favorite one that you did, or?
Yeah, being involved with that. The nice part was that was probably one of the more interesting parts of the job I did. Is sometimes I would. The science department, for example, would have sometimes once a month a special science lecture, and a lot of times an outside guest would come in and give a lecture on some interesting scientific thing, and I would go up there and tape that. Sometimes student presentations, and occasionally when I was with the AV department, we would videotape mostly concerts that were put on by the college. Now that I'm working at the Performance Hall, I've had a chance to be involved with a lot of the people that have come and gone out of there, and it's been interesting. We had Bill Cosby in recently, and his contract required that cameras be used to project his face on big screens behind him so people could see his expression, his expressions and stuff. So that was part of what I was doing, was running one of those cameras, for his presentation. So, that's what's fun. A lot of different things come and go, and never quite sure what.
What was your most rewarding experience when you were here full time?
You were kind enough to give me some of these questions in advance to ponder, and that one is the one I spent the most time pondering.
Really?
Yeah, and the answer I came up with, I actually took a little note here. I have a quote from a book called Follow Your Heart, Finding Purpose in Your Life and Work by Andrew Matthews. And this quote popped into my head, so I looked it up, and he said, the quote is, "We don't make our lives meaningful with one great deed. We have to see meaning in a lot of little deeds and find a connection amongst them." And I thought about that because I kept thinking, well, what would be, like something that was, very satisfying or felt like it was a nice experience. And I think my answer in some terms would be, it's not one thing, but it was a collective whole. Because I spent a lot of time just pushing AV equipment from one room to another. And, when people needed a slide projector, I had a schedule and I'd take it to them. And, videotaping was one of the more exciting aspects. But a lot of my time was spent doing mundane things, and I thought, a lot of our jobs are like that. They're, on the surface, they're mundane. But as I thought about this last night, I thought, well, to me, I thought, well, what is the purpose of the college? And this is the answer I came up with, is that colleges to me are a place to pursue and develop your hopes and dreams. And anybody who works at the college is supporting that and is helping in some humble way, shape, or form to do their little part to help students achieve that goal. And so sometimes you don't feel that what you're doing is that important or that significant. And so you look back and go, gosh, what was the highlight? What was the big thing that I did for the college? But going back to the Disneyland analogy, I thought, I don't know too many people who go to Disneyland don't have a good time. And yet when you go there, there's the ticket takers, there's a guy that goes around sweeping up the park so it looks nice, and the ride operators. And I imagine a lot of those jobs in and of themselves aren't that exciting. I mean, after you've done them for taking tickets for hours, or swept for hours. But all of those people in their own little way make Disneyland the magical place it is and the fun experience. And in the same way, a community college or any institution like this, we all play some part, and there's no college that I know of that can be run by one person. It's a collective effort by a lot of people. And so I've looked back and thought at times, well, I didn't really do that much. And I think a lot of people maybe have a tendency to feel like maybe their jobs aren't important or significant or earth-shaking. But when you look at yourself as part of a collective whole in helping to have provided the opportunities for people to find and fulfill hopes and dreams, I mean, what bigger contribution can you make? And the other thing is that I hope that somehow institutions, and I think the larger they get, the easier it is to lose face and to lose heart and to lose humanity. And I hope that the years I was here, I was able to provide some of the heart to the college and some of the humanity to the college, because it's one thing to run the business aspects of what makes it function, but it's another thing to give a friendly look or something that gives it a human feel. And one of my youngest daughters spent a year at a college quite a ways away, and when we went up for her orientation, I all of a sudden, after years of working at this college, I was on the other side now, and I was in a strange place and felt odd and felt foreign and felt, sort of like, gosh, we're the new people, we don't know anything, she's new, she doesn't know anybody. And I'll never forget the friendly people made such a difference, the people who worked at the college who made you feel welcome, who made you feel like this was a place that you were valued and wanted, and they were looking forward to being involved with you. And that made kind of an impression and sort of just reminded me of the importance of giving heart and giving soul and giving humanity to the workplace. And I think, too, after all these years working here, a lot of what made the experience meaningful had nothing to do with the work, but it has everything to do with relationships and with people and with friendships and with the interaction that you have among other people. Because a lot of times when you look back, it's not the daily grind that you have fond memories of. It's the people and some of the experiences. But probably in terms of something that we did that I found personally rewarding in a more practical sense or a more physical sense is we had a program called On Campus years ago for a short period of time, where we actually produced a program for a local television station about the campus. And that was fun because I got to do every aspect of, from sometimes writing script to on camera to shooting stuff to editing to trying to figure out stuff. And that was fun because it utilized all your creative juices, but it also was a way of trying to bring out the best or most interesting qualities of the college and present them to the community through television. So that was fun too.
So I'm interested to know, do you think that if you worked at a large university, you would still have that same personal reward of the interaction and friendliness of everyone as you would on a smaller campus like Yavapai?
I think my guess would be within the department or wherever you're working, you might have that experience. But to me, universities can be so large that it would be almost impossible to retain much of that corporate family feel amongst, especially when you look at places like ASU or something that's like a small city, and I mean, except for events like ball games or something that gather large crowds, you have sort of that spirit feeling. But I think that's one thing I enjoyed about high school is when I went through high school, most high schools, or at least the one I went to, was small enough that you had a lot of spirit, within the school and within the student body, and you knew most of the people, if not by name, at least you recognized faces.
Right.
And so there was sort of an excitement in feeling like you're part of a clan, a big family, a tribe, or whatever term you want to use. And I think the larger places get, the more difficult and challenging it is to retain that kind of a feel. But
Yeah, that's very true. Well, on the flip side of rewarding experience, what do you think was the most challenging experience you had at Yavapai?
I think for me the most challenging experience was dealing with the changes that took place. As I mentioned, the first 17 years or so I worked here, we had a really rock solid department, and it didn't change a lot, and we got a real rhythm. Again, I keep trying to use analogies, but it's almost like working on a team. If you're with the same people in the same format for long enough, you can get a real rhythm and a real flow with what you're doing, and you can get real precise and fairly good, and at the same time maintain, I think, a high level of quality to your work.
Mm-hmm.
But the last 10 years I worked here, the college went through a lot of internal changes as well as external changes as well as physical changes to the campus itself. And so, just from the physical aspect, the last 5 or 6 years I was here, the campus went through a complete physical renovation where things were being torn out and redone and shuffled around. And so physically, it was difficult, but I think even more challenging to me than the physical changes were internal structural changes within departments, because I originally, for the first 17 years, AV was traditionally part of the library.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And so I was under the library, and then that switched, and we became under distributed learning, I think was how they termed that department. And that went on for a few years. And then I was switched under ITS department. And I think that's kind of the transition that most colleges have been taking with AV departments. Traditionally, I think a lot of them probably were part of the library environment. And then as technology has changed and everything, they've become absorbed into the technology areas. And so, but in those processes, there was a lot of change of leadership in departmental structures, and it was difficult for me to try to continue providing the same service with the same quality, but having the deck be reshuffled over and over again, and different game plans, presented to you, and that was probably one of the most challenging things. The other thing that was probably the most challenging, or one of the most challenging, was the decision to retire. I don't like the word retirement. But the decision to move on after 27 years. It becomes such a part of your life and who you are and what you do. It's disorienting to walk away from that, at least for me. I know there's probably a lot of retired people going, that guy's nuts, couldn't wait, but it's hard to change when you've done something consistently for a long period. So,
what would you say you miss the most?
I think that's a good question. Now, I had a chance to ponder most of these. I think there's a sense of belonging, that being part of something bigger than yourself, and sort of having I hate to almost even say this or admit this, but sort of having an identity with a group and an institution that's recognized, and people can relate to that. And when you leave that, and like I said, I don't care for the term retirement, and I'm still working part-time, but you kind of lose a little bit of that feeling of being part of something. All of a sudden you're sort of a loner on your own again, It's it can be exciting. I've told people since I've taken this move, it's both very exciting and adventurous because I've got a new life now I'm trying to figure out, and I feel a lot like students do. I have empathy because you've got possibilities, but just this uncertainty of how is this all going to unfold for me now. And so that part's exciting, but it's a little scary too at the same time. It's sort of there's a security in having been part of something for a lot of years. And you have to sort of let go of that and find a new way. So
have you taken on any new hobbies?
Well, I've always been involved with some Christian work, ministry in the sense of I used to have a home Bible study at my house and sing at churches and coffee houses and things. And I used to be involved with some of the Prescott Fine Arts plays years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm currently doing a lot of Celtic music. So, I sang at a restaurant last weekend, and this coming Saturday, the Celtic Society has a Highland Games out at Watson Park, so I'll be singing out there this Saturday. So I've been doing some of that, and then I've taken one small step. We'll see if I keep walking this direction. But having been involved with video production for a lot of years, and I've produced a few programs on my own in the past, I decided, well, maybe I should utilize the cable access network that's available to community members and maybe give a shot at producing a few programs again. So I put together a little program and submitted it, and it's supposed to start airing, I think, this week over cable access. So we'll see how that goes. Oh, well, I hope it's more than, Wayne's World, kind of thing. But, I'm trying to come up with creative ideas, things that I find interesting or inspirational. And this project that I'm worked on now is what I called it Triumph from Tragedy. And it's sort of takes the story of Beethoven and another composer, Handel for the Hallelujah Chorus. And anyway, I kind of take a look at their lives and their backgrounds and how they kind of came from the low ebb of their life to producing some of their best works. And then that gives me a chance to incorporate music into, the program and provide hopefully some inspiration and some, insight for people. So, it's just a one-man production. It's sort of like what we're doing today. You set a camera up and you sit in front of it and hope that maybe people get a little something out of it. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
So in closing, do you have any advice for people attending Yavapai or wanting to work at Yavapai?
Boy, that's another really good one.
Sorry.
No, it's good. I think I would encourage people to, like I said, I think the college environment is something that holds a lot of hope and a lot of promise and a lot of possibilities. And I think that whether you're a student or whether you're an employee, there's a lot that you can glean out of the environment and from the situations that present themselves within a college atmosphere, and to try to make the best use of that as you can and to enjoy it as best you can. And, like I said, with challenges, there's going to be, life is never perfect, and there's always bumps in the road and challenges, but to try to find your niche, trying to find something that excites you, that you feel a passion about and an excitement about, and then try to find a niche within that environment, either as a student or as an employee. For me, I enjoyed creative things, and the audiovisual services was a little bit of a niche that I felt like I could utilize hopefully some creative urges that I had, and yet be employed. I think the thing that's nice about as an employee for a college environment is having a steady job. The one thing I'm probably most grateful for is for most of the years I worked here, I had a lot of time off because of college. One of the benefits, I was in a classified position where, my pay grade wasn't that high, but they were fairly generous with holidays and vacation times, and my kids are now grown, but I'm most grateful for the fact that because I worked here and had so much time off, and my time was spent with my family, and you don't get that again. And one thing I've told some of the younger guys that I've been around, if you have a family, don't miss out on your family. Kids are only 5 for 1 year, they're only 6 for 1 year, they're only 7 for 1 year. You don't get that back. And once you've missed it, you can't go backwards. So really take advantage of that. Take advantage of the things that really matter in life. And I guess that would be maybe my bottom line advice is keep your priorities straight and remember the things that are really important in life and give your time, energy, and resources to those things, because then when you look back, you won't have regrets. You can look back with, I miss not having my kids at home, but because I spent so much time going to swim meets and plays and all that, I can look back and with fondness and go, those were years well spent. So that's the biggest thing I'm grateful to the college for, is the way my job worked out allowed me a lot of time to be a family person and enjoy that part of life. So life is not just college, not just work, not just it's everything, and I think maintaining a healthy balance is really a good thing to keep in mind for people. So those would be my little tidbits.
They're very good tidbits. Well, is there anything we didn't cover that you wanted to mention?
Boy, I'm at a point in my life now where it's hard to remember anything. So I think that kind of covers the core of it, and can't think of too much else at this point.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Well, you're welcome.